Hey everybody, it's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer, coming to talk to you about the events of July 2020. So first of all, everyone's favorite topic, it seems Mercury Retrograde, which is becoming unretrograde very soon. And it actually means Mercury going direct. And that's going to happen on July, well, let's say July 11th, July 12th, right in there. And that's nice, but you know, Mercury retrograde is a good time to be wrapping up old projects, kind of getting back in touch with your inner voice, connecting with meditation. We talked about these things before. And what's interesting about this Mercury retrograde is on July 5th, which is today when I'm doing the video, we're having a full moon, and it's actually what's called a pulse, which is a mini eclipse. We've got a total eclipse, partial eclipse, and there's a pulse. So this is a pulse. So it's a bit of a stronger full moon. And we're having that in the sun sign at 13 degrees of Cancer and the moon at 13 degrees of Capricorn. Full moons are always when the sun and moon are opposite each other. And then where Mercury went retrograde last month in June was basically 13 degrees of Cancer. So it's interesting to me when you've got, you know, a planet doing a little shuffle doodle like a Mercury retrograde, and then there's this full moon, you know, little eclipse here at the same degree, Cancer Capricorn. It's that same sort of line. So it's like, okay. So now we've got the little pulse and Mercury going forward. And so throughout the month of July, Mercury's catching up with itself. And so it's covering the territory it went retrograde over. And on July 26th, it hits that 14 degree point, which is the full moon today. So that all being said, there's kind of an extension of that idea of like fulfilling, because the full moon wants you to fulfill the things that you were thinking about and sort of tapping into, you know, and completing those things. So it kind of extends the Mercury retrograde, not in a confusing way, when people worry about Mercury retrograde being confusing, but in a way that continues your sense of passion towards what's been important to you. So you can continue to like walk your talk or practice living those that sense of things that make you feel vital, because with that Mercury having retrograded in Cancer, it has a lot to do with your own inner voice, like sort of your pure soul desires. So because Cancer kind of represents that like your basic sense of self and like your rootedness, you know? So being able to live that, speak it, feel comfortable in that, like non-codependent, things like that. So the fact we're having this full moon now just keeps that strength going. And on that similar theme, we've been talking about Venus was retrograde. It went retrograde in May, and then it went forward in the end of June, and that was actually June. Yeah, it's the end of June. And now Venus is catching up with itself and is moving over that territory where it went backwards over, and that finishes on July 28th. So it's again that sense of, because Venus represents, in a slightly similar way to the sign of Cancer, like what we really value, you know? So living what we value, speaking, because it was retrograde in Gemini, so it's still in Gemini now, speaking Gemini about what I value, you know, and writing it and the affirmations and these kind of things. It's just great to keep working on that all through July. And, you know, living from your heart is kind of like that, we could say, with the Mercury and the Venus doing what they're doing. Now, the other thing is kind of neat. I'm talking to you about a lot of retrogrades. The planet Mars is going to go retrograde in September. So why are we talking about it now? Because Mars hardly ever goes retrograde, so it's kind of interesting, and we'll definitely talk much more about that significance in September. But the last few days of June, Mars went into Aries. So Mars is the ruling planet of Aries, and Mars really likes being in Aries, and it's very, if you think about Aries being the first sign, it's like a fresh energy for Mars, and Mars is the planet of fresh and vital and yeah, you know? So it's this resurgence of passion, of direction, of enthusiasm, and Mars is going to go almost all the way through Aries, and it goes more slowly than normal because it's going to retrograde. So with this prolonged time of Mars in Aries, because usually it will whip through a sign in 2 months, sometimes 6 weeks, but we're going to have it go, slow through Aries, get almost to the end of Aries in September, back up, and then go forward again. It won't even go into Taurus until like the middle of January. So this period of time when it's just gone into Aries and it's still moving along, it's slightly slower when it gets to like August, it really slows down, but it's taking advantage of that sense of vitality, and whatever you can do for, can represent physical fitness, that Mars in Aries, or just like having the courage to live your dreams and to take steps. And I think what's kind of good about Mars in Aries taking a slightly slower pace over these few months is the consistency, to, instead of enthusiasm that then flags, you can keep going and keep, even if it's bits of things, to keep doing those things. So it keeps the motivation going, The other thing that kind of helps with that is talking about Saturn. Saturn's gone retrograde. And some people say, oh my God, everything's retrograde. Well, the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they're retrograde half the year. So a lot of times you get, those guys are all retrograde, then you get Saturn doing it, or Mercury, so it's not like the end of the world. Some people are like, oh my God, all this stuff is going on in the world and all these planets are retrograde. It's like, they're always retrograde as no one talks about it because there isn't crazy stuff going on in the world. It's just, it's not to do with the retrogrades, really. Like, things are always retrograde. So Saturn has gone, actually I should say at the end of March, Saturn went into Aquarius, boop, just a little bit, to 0 degree, 1 degree, and then it turned around. It's like, okay, 1 degree, 0 degree, boop, now it goes back into Capricorn, which it did the first few days of July, and it's going to stay in Capricorn until mid-December, and then go into Aquarius for the 2.5 years or so that it stays in a sign. So we get this little wrap up of Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn is in a sign for 3 years or so, 2.5 to 3 years, and Saturn is the planet that represents Capricorn. So in a way, Saturn likes being in Capricorn. But what could you think about again, this is kind of wrap up of Saturn having been in Capricorn for all these years, and to think about your value system, anything about finances, lining up your finances. A lot of, Saturn is like making your life easy for you because things are in a pattern or things are like streamlined, and so it could seem sort of boring, but it's kind of like, when you're little and your mom wants you to lay out your clothes for the morning, so when you wake up for school, you just get up and put them on and you're going, as opposed to picking everything up. So it's kind of like Saturn wants you to have your clothes laid out in the morning and then you just get up and do stuff. So, and Saturn makes you think, what is important to me? And I want it, like prioritizing those things that then you simplify and streamline. So you just get them done. And it kind of links in with this idea of Mars in Aries, which is that when you do take the time to set it up, then when you do it, it goes faster, And so it is kind of a return to thinking about, it can be some financial goals. It can be, with your value system, prioritizing what's important to you in life. A lot of times Saturn also has to do with boundaries, healthy boundaries. And if we look at all the planets, the Mercury retrograding in Cancer and stuff, that can also be about boundaries with family or with your own boundaries, speaking up for what's important to you and making sure you're not, you're being flexible when you interact with people, but also having a strength about who you are where you won't go past certain things. And Saturn going back into Capricorn can remind you of that, and stay firm with those boundaries. And then actually that creates healthier relationships, So that's part of the Saturn. And okay, with the eclipse, the Mars in Aries. Okay, not that much more to talk about. Okay, I did cover everything I wanted to. Well, that's a lot as it is. So I know sometimes they go on for a while, and I've lost the Aries people for sure within the first 3 minutes, right? I'm like, I'm done, this is boring. But I know the Virgos want every detail. So, hey, if you want a session with me, please contact me. You can find me through my website, alunamichaels.com. You can call or text 248-583-1663. I've got the number in the details of the video. And if you want my book that's on Amazon Kindle, The Spiritual Gifts of the 12 Astrological Signs, and that can give you little helpful hints with your sun sign and moon sign and rising sign. Kind of wrote it to be like that. So hang in there, just keep staying passionate with what's important to you, and I think you're going to really enjoy July. And that's all. So bye-bye for now.